Pretty damn, they took me out on his lawn. He's not live yet, I'll be watching.
And we're live.
Good evening and welcome to the July 14th, 2025 council meeting. All members of council are present. The meeting is being held in person and is also being live streamed on Facebook. I'd like to acknowledge the members of the public that are present and the listening online. We appreciate the diverse population that we have living in Middleton. First order of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes or any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve?
I move.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. And the item number 3 is the proclamation of Emancipation Day, August 1st, 2025. Whereas August 1st is Emancipation Day, commemorating the event and anniversary date 1834, with the British Parliament abolished slavery across its empire, freeing about 800,000 enslaved people of African descent throughout the British colonies. Whereas we must acknowledge that the slavery was part of our province and country's horrific past, and this history must be shared in our efforts to work together to address any black racism and all forms of racism, so all Nova Scotians can prosper, reach their full potential, and live an equal citizen. Therefore, I, Gail Smith, Mayor of Middleton, do hereby proclaim August 1st, 2025 as Emancipation Day in the town of Middleton. Item number 4. The minutes of the June 16th council meeting in camera and the in-camera meetings. So I guess the first one is June 16th minutes. And the in-camera meetings of June 23rd and July 7th special council meetings have been circulated. Are there any corrections in these minutes? No. Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. Anything by citizens? There you go.
I didn't receive anything.
Item 6.1, Committee of the Whole recommendations. A, RFD 032-2025 bylaw enforcement agreement. CEO.
Thank you. This was presented at the July 7th Committee of the Whole meeting last week. So we went over this at that time, but just very briefly, this is an RFD asking for council's approval to sign an agreement with the County of Annapolis for them to start doing some bylaw enforcement for us. So right away, that would be the noise bylaw, the dangerous and unsightly bylaw, and they already do the animal control bylaw. And then we would work with the county over the next few months to review our existing bylaws and potentially repeal ones that are not applicable anymore, or change and update ones that need to be changed or updated. So they probably wouldn't start doing bylaw enforcement until the beginning of September, until they get the lay of the land and whatnot. So the agreement, the draft proposed agreement, is attached to the RFD. And I think that's everything.
I'll move the council approves the proposed bylaw enforcement agreement with the municipality of the county of Annapolis, starting no later than September 1st, 2025, and ending March 31st, 2030. And direct the mayor and CEO to execute the agreement.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. B of that is RFD 3034-2025 unhoused population and park safety. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. This RFD was also presented at Committee of the Whole last week regarding the recent situation at our parks and the status update of our unhoused population and path forward. And there's a draft letter attached to the RFD that we are recommending be sent to Minister LeBlanc, and would like council's blessing for sending that letter, and staff will come back at a later meeting with an update on some of the meetings that we've had so far with the province and some organizations on best path to move forward. That'll probably happen at the September council.
So we have a motion there.
I'll move the council approve sending the attached letter to the Honorable Colton LeBlanc, Minister of Growth and Development and Minister responsible for the Nova Scotia Provincial Housing Agency.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. 6.2 RFD 035-2025. Approval of the 2025-2026 operating budget. CAO.
Thank you. So these next three RFDs are with regards to the 25-26 budgets that we've had a few different meetings on so far. So I believe version 3 that committee of the whole reviewed last meeting is what was proposed to be brought forward tonight. So that is what is here. So the first RFD is with respect to the 25-26 town general operating budget. And there is quite a long resolution that does have to be read and passed by council, which outlines all of the rates that council is blessing staff charge on the final tax bills in September. The rates are all the same, except for the hydrant rate, which could change, and it has to be set at a later date. So we do have it here in the resolution in motion. But now that we finalized our year-end processes, and have draft statements actually today that went to the auditors, we can now calculate that hydrant rate, which is based on prior year actuals. Also attached to the RFD is the calculation of the sewer rate and a little excerpt from our sewer bylaw that dictates how the sewer rate has to be calculated. So those calculations are there. And then there's a summary slide from the budget presentation that shows all of the rates that are being proposed to be charged. So there is another change on the sewer tax exempt rate, which doesn't affect the average taxpayer. That just affects about 25 different properties that are tax exempt and don't receive a tax bill and instead get billed for their sewer on their water bills. So I don't think there's any update from our last meeting. All the numbers are as they were presented at the last committee of the whole meeting. The only update that I will give council is we did finalize the draft statements today, and the surplus from last year is sitting at 95,000. So there might be a couple other minor adjustments in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, and unless the auditors find something as well, but that is where it stands as of today. So there's two separate motions. The first one is very short, the second one is very long.
I'll recommend that council approve the 2025-2026 town general operating budget as presented with total expenditures of $4,996,706.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And there's a second one.
And second one.
The town council estimates the sum required for the lawful purposes of the town for the year 2025 to 2026. After crediting probable revenues from all sources other than the rates for the year is a sum of $4,996,706. And the town council hereby authorizes the levying and collection of a rate for the current year of $4.30 per $100 on the value of the property assessed in the assessment roll as commercial property and business occupancy, and $1.82 per $100 on the value of the property assessed in the assessment roll as residential resource property. The rate of $3.14 per acre of property assessed in the assessment roll as farm acreage, and the rate of $3.23 per $100 on the value of the property assessed in the assessment roll as seasonal tourist businesses. And a sewer service charge with a flat fee of $250, plus an additional rate of 13 cents per $100 on the value of the property assessed in the assessment roll as taxable residential and commercial property on which any building is connected to the sewage system of the town, and a fire protection, also considered hydrant rate of 13 cents per $100 on the value of all properties assessed in the assessment roll. These being the rates the council deems sufficient to raise the sum to defray the expenditure of the town for the current year. And that the rates and taxes be due and payable the last business day of September 2025. That the interest rate of 2.4% per annum compounded be charged on the 2025-2026 final tax bill still outstanding after the last business day of September 2026. And that a sewer usage rate of 91.7 cents per 1 cubic meter of water consumed by tax exempt properties, which are not paying full grants in lieu of taxation, be levied in accordance with the sewer service charge bylaw for the year 2025-2026.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
No question.
A question, oh. I think
Or just comment.
Okay, question,
Um,
comment.
I just think that it was read 2.4% per annum and it's 24%.
What did I say, 2.4?
I think you did, but I'm not sure.
Oh,
I just want to clarify.
Or just correction, yeah.
You gotta read it again.
The whole thing.
It-
Okay, here it is. Good, thank you.
We trust. Okay, RFD 036-2024, approval of the 2025-2026 capital budget. See,
Thank you. So this RFD is, approval of the section of our budget that pertains to capital expenditures, so infrastructure, and tangible items. There are 4 motions there, and this again did not change, I believe, even since the first time we presented the budget to committee of the whole. So there's a few attachments there. There's the 25-26 capital budget that, if approved, will allow staff to go execute those projects as stated in the budget. So just as a refresher, if we have a budget to buy a new truck and for 50,000 and half the money is coming from a grant and half the money is coming from long-term debt, and we don't get the grant and we now have to pay for the whole thing with debt, staff would have to come back to council and get reapproval for the project, because that would have an additional operating impact on the budget that would have to be approved by council. Even if the truck stayed at the $50,000 mark. The other situation is if after we do some tendering, the bids come back higher than what we had in the budget, we would have to come back to council for reapproval on that particular project. So if council approves this tonight, it's just authorizing execution of each project as presented in the capital budget, and any changes would have to come back. There is also a motion there that we approve the budget, and as a reminder, that's just approving it in principle. We still do a motion because there's a resolution that has to go with that and get filed with our capital investment plan, or our CIP, that the province requires that we submit every year, and that capital investment plan is a 5-year plan that we have to submit to the province. And then there is a couple different motions there for the Middleton Water Utility as well. So this capital budget is covering both town general capital expenditures and expenditures of the Middleton Water Utility. And yeah, all of the various snippets from the budget presentation are just attached there for your ease of reference. And there's 4 different motions that do need to be read. Okay.
Sure. I'll recommend the council approve the 2025-2026 capital budget for town general and water in the amount of $5,879,976 as presented.
Seconded.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
I'll recommend the council approve the 5-year town general capital budget for the year 2025, 26, 26, 27, 27, 28, 28, 29, and 29, 30 in the amount of $9,405,851.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
I'll recommend that council approve the five-year capital budget for the Middleton Water Utility for the years 2025, 26, 26, 27, 27, 28, 29, and in 29, 30 in the amount of $6,360,176.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
I recommend the council receive the presentation of the five-year capital budget for years 2025 to 2026 to 2029 to 2030 in the amount of $15,766,327 and direct staff to file a five-year capital investment plan with the province.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
It's actually a separate line item on the. That's on 6.4, we haven't gone to 6.4 yet.
So it's. Okay, Okay, 6.4 RFD 037 2024. Approval of the 2025-2026 water budget, CAO.
Thank you. This RFD does look a little bit different than last year. So typically, and I do have this written in here, but the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board requires that we file a 3-year operating plan with them no later than September 30th of each year. Normally, we would have a 3-year water budget here for council to approve, but we are at the tail end, but still in the middle of an unfinalized rate study application with the UARB. And in that rate study, it should dictate what our operating budgets are for the next 3 years. So what I've chosen to do this year is just have council pass the current year budget, so staff are authorized to go execute the 25-26 budget as was presented in the last couple of meetings. And then when we get the rate study finalized, we'll come back to council probably at the September 2nd special council meeting that I just asked Sarah to schedule to present the 3-year operating budget and have council approve that. There's a special resolution that has to be done for that as well. And then that is what gets filed with the Utility and Review Board. But we do need to approve a budget for this year so that staff can go ahead and carry on. So I just wanted to give council a heads up that resolution and the 3-year operating budget will come later after the rate study's finalized. So just one motion with this one.
I'll move the council approve the town of Middleton Water Utility operating budget for the year 2025-26 with planned expenditures of $826,981.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. 6.5 RFD 038 2025 Valley Waste Resource Management Loan Guarantee. Sale.
Thank you. So this is a new RFD that we didn't have time to get prepared for committee of the whole last week. And it's with regards to the Valley Waste Resource Management Loan Guarantee. So every year during the budget process, Valley Waste Resource Management approves an operating budget and a capital budget. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes some of their capital budgets are projected to use long-term debt. And when that's the case, they do secure their loans through MFC or Municipal Finance Corp like we do. However, one of the requirements of Municipal Finance Corp, because they're owned by municipal units, is that each municipal unit provide a loan guarantee, which is basically saying that if Valley Waste were to default on any of their loans for the capital projects, the town of Middleton would be on the hook for our portion of that loan guarantee. And as you can see in the RFD, our portion of ownership in Valley Waste is fairly small. It's 1.9% for this budget year. So the Valley Waste board has already approved this capital budget and the total that they're projecting to borrow through long-term debt is about 1.5 million, give or take. So the town's portion of that, if Valley Waste were to default on all of those loans, would be about $27,000. To my knowledge, that's never happened, that they've defaulted, and this has been an ongoing RFD that I've brought to council the last few years I've been here. Because they have used long-term debt to fund some of their capital projects, or at least a portion thereof. So what's required is that council approve the motion that is there, and then we do have to sign a loan guarantee certificate and file it back with Valley Waste, who sends it in with their documents for the debenture.
I'll move the council approve the included town Middleton's loan guarantee resolution in the amount of up to, but not exceeding, $27,890, representing 1.9% of the total of $1,465,000 to be borrowed by Valley Waste for their 2025-26 capital budget.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. RFD 039-2025 appointment list, CAO.
Thank you. This RFD just notes a few changes to the appointment list, and in September we'll have to make a couple more changes. So the first one is to just remove our previous director of finance, Bridget Stennett, as the town treasurer. And then that her name was also removed from the asset management working group, and just we put vacant until that position's filled. And just recommending that we put myself in there as town treasurer so that I can sign some of the documents that the town treasurer is required to sign. I've been signing them, but I just question that it probably should be formally appointed. So as an example, there are some tax certificates that people ask for, and the town treasurer is required to sign those. I've been signing them in the interim, but just proper process, I should probably be designated until we have another director of finance. And then the second change is the County of Annapolis has a new manager of protective services. His name's Robert Bruce, and some of council met him at the previous joint police advisory board meeting that we had here. So he's overseeing the bylaw enforcement officers and the special constables that the County of Annapolis has. So he will need to be added as a bylaw enforcement officer, or appointed as a bylaw enforcement officer. And I did have a conversation with him and asked him if he was a special constable, because I noticed that we had that classification for Zachary Cromwell. And he said that he needed each municipal unit to appoint him as a bylaw enforcement officer, and then they would transfer whatever certification he has right now over to special constable. So that he basically will be a special constable once all that paperwork goes through. And Ashley Gervais has her paperwork done. It just hasn't gone through. So once we get that notification that paperwork's gone through, we'll update this to say special constable. And I did remove that title. Originally said animal control / bylaw enforcement officers. And since the county's going to be doing like almost all the bylaw enforcement for us moving forward, I just removed the animal control bit, because that will just get lumped in with all bylaw enforcement. The animal control bylaw is just one of a number that we have. So that is there now. In September, once the agreement that council just approved has been signed and executed, we will also have to come back and appoint either Robert Bruce or someone else as the dangerous and unsightly premises administrator. So that'll be another update that we'll likely do at the September 2nd special meeting. But for now, this is what I have. And the other change that I made that I didn't highlight, oh yes, I did highlight what the Valley Regional Services Board, the name changed. I think we had IMSA, Intermunicipal Services Board there. So I just retitled it to align it with the agreement that we just recently signed. So those are all of the changes described, and there is 4 different motions there.
I'll move the council on recommendation from the CAO, remove Bridget Stead as town treasurer.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
I move council appoint CAO Ashley Crocker as town treasurer.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
I'll move the council on recommendation from the CAO appoint Robert Bruce as a bylaw enforcement officer.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
I move council approve the appointment list as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. 6.7 RFD 031-2025. First reading land use bylaw amendment for parking. CAO.
Thank you, Mayor. This is also probably the first time council's seeing this, except for those that sit on the planning advisory committee. So back in March, we had our planners, Brighter Community Planning Consulting, do a staff report on reducing or removing our parking standards that are present in our land use bylaw. And there was a discussion at the PAC committee level, and eventually the PAC made a recommendation to council to give first reading on some changes to the land use bylaw. This just fell off our radar a little bit with the changes with Dawn leaving BCP and so on. So as I was filling out the Housing Accelerator Fund grant report, I realized that we needed to do this because one of the initiatives in our Housing Accelerator Fund grant application was that we would explore and either reduce or remove the parking standards in our LEB. So I will be required to update the Housing Accelerator Fund on the status of this initiative. This is just one of the 5. So you can see there that we've attached the PAC minutes from that meeting so that you can see what was discussed and what was commented on. There's a planning staff report from BCP. And then there's also the proposed amendments and recommendations in the last section there. So what we're asking council to do tonight is to just give first reading to the proposed LUB amendments, which is changing the parking requirements from, I think, Sarah, was it one spot per unit, or it was 1 spot per unit, down to 0.8 in the commercial downtown zone, and then 0.5 parking spaces per unit in a different area there that's in the motion. And then that council directs staff to prepare a map showing the areas where this would apply and add it as Schedule B to the land use bylaw. And then we also do need to schedule a public hearing and second reading, because where this is a proposed bylaw amendment to a planning bylaw. So our 2 planning bylaws are our municipal planning strategy and our land use bylaw. So anytime the Municipal Government Act basically says that anytime that you propose changes to one of those bylaws, you need to hold a public hearing so that the public can provide input on it. And then normally we hold those public hearings from 6 to 7 before council meetings, and then we do second reading directly following that public hearing as the first item on the agenda at the council meeting. So I don't see a proposed motion here for that. I thought I had put that in there, and then I think it got removed, Sarah, but I think we're gonna have to add a second motion here where council actually moves to schedule the public hearing and second reading on a specific date. And I would suggest that we do that at the September 15th council meeting. So that will be our next regularly scheduled council meeting, because we don't hold one in August. So the reason that BCP is not here tonight, is generally at first reading, there's no discussion. Or exploration into the matter, council just gives first reading, and then council comes to the public hearing. To hear our planner's presentation on the matter, hear the public's, concerns or comments. And then when we go to the second reading bit, if counselors still have questions, and that's where they can be asked. So all that we need tonight is just the motion to give first reading, which will trigger the public hearing and second reading.
I move council give first reading to and schedule a public hearing for the LUB amendments regarding changing the required parking unit ratio to require all multi-unit dwellings to provide 0.8 parking spaces per unit and all dwellings on the property on commercial downtown CD zone in this area between Station Street, Knott Avenue, Gates Avenue, Jones Avenue to provide 0.5 parking spaces per unit. And the council direct staff to prepare a mapping showing the areas where to supply and add it to the Schedule B to the LUB.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
So then I will ask if we can make a second motion. I know it's not in here, but it should read something like, if the date's agreeable to council, that municipal council schedule a public hearing and second reading for the LUB amendments regarding changing the required parking unit ratio on September 15th, 2025.
So moved.
Second that.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Okay, 8. RFD 040-2025, second reading, cross connection control bylaw, CAO.
Thank you, Mayor. So council did see this bylaw before. We did first reading of it at our June council meeting. So subsequent to that council meeting and first reading, we did put a notice on our website to advertise the second reading. And because this is not a planning related bylaw, we're not required to do a public hearing for it. So there's no public hearing tonight on this new bylaw, and as well as the one after, which was just some minor changes to the dog bylaw. So this is for a draft cross connection control bylaw. It is a new bylaw for the town. And in the RFD, it does explain that tonight the step is that council gives second reading and approve the bylaw. If they do that, then what that means is that we have to put a notice of adoption ad on our website. And then the bylaw and the documents become effective on the date of publication of that notice, which if council approved it tonight, presumably that would happen tomorrow. So then we would certify a copy of the bylaw document with the town seal. We have to send it to the minister, and we would upload the new bylaw to the bylaw section of our website where all of our bylaws are held. And this is to be in compliance with the water, like it's a requirement to operate the water utility.
I'll move the council gives second reading and approves the new cross connection control bylaw.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. RFD 041-2025, second reading dog bylaw, CAO.
Thank you, Mayor. And this RFD is very similar to the last one. We had a current bylaw called the animal control bylaw. And this was presented for second reading at the June council meeting, where staff are proposing it be updated to a dog bylaw, because the bylaw used to cover the collection of cats, and we don't do that anymore because the county of Annapolis lost their contract with the SPCA, so they don't pick up cats for themselves anymore or for us. So we just changed some wording in the animal control bylaw to remove any reference to cats, and then we also made some changes to make it consistent with the county's bylaw. So that the bylaw enforcement officers, don't have to remember two different set of rules, based on where they're picking up dogs. And same process with this, if council gives second reading tonight, it will put a notice of adoption ad on the website, print the bylaw, put our town seal on it. The other one gets repealed, and then we send the updated copy to the minister.
I'll move that council give second reading and approve chapter 60, the dog bylaw.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. 6.10, RFD 042-2025, Reservoir Construction. Change order number 2, Director of Public Works.
This RFD is in regards to the change orders for the reservoir. About 4 months ago, we had a similar one. Approving change order 001 through 5. At that time, council approved up to $20,000 in change orders. But with that, there was a max of $7,000 that we could approve without taking it to council. Change orders 6 and 7 are fairly large. Combined 6, 7, and 8 total $46,561. Change order 6 is a fairly large one. We went to tie the reservoir to an existing water system. And the water was not where everyone thought it would be. It was a lot closer to the house up on Junction Road, about 3 or 4 feet from the foundation, and it actually appears to be running underneath the porch up there. So we couldn't tie in there, so we had to move the locations. Unfortunately, after reviewing the ground conditions and what's going on in the field, we have to move it about 20 meters. And it's a large pipe, so it's about $1,000 to $2,000 a meter to install. So that's why that change order is so large. It's about $34,000. Change order number 7 is to increase the length of the underground power to the site. I think the original drawing showed a power pole at the road and then a second power pole at the building. Nova Scotia came out, scoped the site and determined that they only wanted to put 1 power pole in. The distance from the road to the building was under the distance that they typically put poles, and they suggested that the power just be run underground to the site rather than having another overhead line. So the duct bank and the conduit and the cable is another, I think it's 10,500. I don't have the change orders with me, but and then change order 8 is just to increase the size of the grounding wire. I don't think it met code, what was in the original design and the shop drawings. I think it was inspected by the inspector. He said the cable needed to be longer. That change order is around $870 to use longer grounding cable. Like I said, the financial implications of the 3 change orders is about $46,560. And that money would come from the additional roughly $400,000 that was approved to do the project.
From the contingency fund.
From the contingency
Yeah.
fund.
And Adam put a chart in the RFD as well that showed the previous change orders that council approved and totaled it all up so that we can keep a running total of. And I don't know if you wanna, I know it's a slightly unrelated to approving change orders, but I don't know if you wanna update council on the shipping of the tank and tariffs.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's going to get shipped this week, I believe. we had a meeting last Wednesday, said go ahead and ship it. I don't think anything's changing the tariff anytime soon. It sounds like if anything, it could possibly get worse, based on the posturing, I with what expert, but. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're gonna get dropped anytime soon. I think we need the tank here within the next week and a half, 2 weeks anyway. I think Aqua Store's probably supposed to be within a month to do the installation, so.
And the latest information we had on the tariffs was that it would be 25% of the cost of the tank, which was about $150,000. We have applied for exemptions, we've emailed a lot of times, we finally got somebody to respond to us. And they had some questions on the application that CBCL and Aqua Store filed. We're not allowed to file it because we're not the organization or the company that's bringing it across the border. It's actually Aqua Store that's bringing it across the border. So Aqua Store had to be the one to fill out these exemption requests. And I think we got an email from them. We gave them some information back. We got another email from them. We gave them some information back, and then we haven't heard anything in about a week or two. Yeah, about 2 weeks. So based on the fact that we need it and that it does kind of look like the tariff situation is going to be worse, we're just going to ship it. When it crosses the border, we will get a sheet of paper, or they will get a sheet of paper that says what the tariff is on it. And I'm hoping that it'll get approved for the exemption, but we have no idea at this point how long that's gonna take, if it's gonna get approved. This is like completely new process for a lot of folks because these tariffs are changing, it seems, every day. So, I mean, the original thought of myself was that if we left it there, potentially the tariffs would go away. But I mean, that's not happening, so the best case that we can hope for is that our exemption request will be approved. If we delay it anymore at the border from what we already have, like it's been sitting there a month, if not more than a month. If we delay it anymore, we're gonna get dinged with delay of contract fines from the contractor. So it does need to be brought across. As Adam mentioned, we have a significant contingency, like 400 and some odd $1,000 contingency for the project. Presumably there's 55,000 that's used, so ideally, we receive not many more change orders. That the tariff could be covered under the contingency would be best case scenario if we don't get an exemption for it. So that is the latest that we have on that.
And we have no timeline for the exemption. It seems like a fairly thorough process from what we understood. It has to go to a committee, and then it has to go to a minister. By the level, it has to go to the police. It could take a couple months.
There's nothing in the package of Adams. There's nothing in the package that I can find.
Not on the tariffs, no.
No, on the,
On the whole-
the change orders, there's no change
Yeah,
orders.
Adam's whole presentation was not in the pack.
Oh,
I don't see it. There's nothing.
That wasn't just me.
okay.
I just downloaded.
We'll have
it.
to update that on the website, Sarah.
Yeah.
Was it not? It must not have been grabbed when you
I
combined.
know the
Yeah, none of.
the
any of
management report and dispatch report wasn't there. The IMSH report wasn't there. It's like it goes down to the Joint Police Advisory
And
Board.
then it
one.
stops.
Stop.
That was the first one that shows up again, was Joint Police Advisory. So
Maybe
it's-
some of them didn't combine because the
Doesn't
package
want
was pretty big.
Yeah,
So, yeah, we'll get that fixed. So the
7.1 to 7.5 didn't get included.
So the cost of change order 6 was 35,304.50. So that was the one where the water line was too close to the person's house. We can't tear their porch down and dig up their lawn, and so tying in some results. Change order number 7 was the longer electrical duct bank to connect the power from the power pole at the road to the building. That was $10,391.55. And then change order number 8 was the extra grounding wire, $865.28. So the total of change orders 1 through 8 is $54,056.33.
That must be with tax.
plus HST. It's before tax.
So,
So that total is including the 1, 2, 3.5 also, which got approved
Yes,
in February, I believe.
right,
yeah,
Yeah.
so this is just approved,
Yours is
6, 7, and 8.
yes, which is 46,000,
And they
I
were
think
only-
it's in the
They
draft.
were brought because I can only approve up to 7.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
actually, maybe you can
Yeah.
only approve up to 7, anything over 7 had to come to council anyway. So, we just included 8 because we were including 6 and 7.
Yes, yes, and we said that we would update council on all the change orders that had been approved between February and now, and there wasn't any, it was just these three.
I move town council authorize and approve the change order 6, 7, and 8 for the new reservoir project as presented totaling $46,561.33 plus HST.
Discussion? Counselor Smith?
Am I right in understanding in the second change order that we're spending an extra $10,000 because Nova Scotia Power doesn't wanna put in the pole? Like if they put in the pole, we wouldn't have to spend $10,000?
Yeah. Essentially, they're saying that the distance between poles isn't long enough to justify a second pole. And the proper way to do it is to run it underground rather than to have a 20-meter section of line.
But if we were putting in a pole, that cost was already in, yes, we would be paying for it. Right?
I'm not sure how that works. It's,
They usually pay for one pole.
right.
Do they pay for the street side poles, do we pay for in-lane poles? I'm just wondering why we're acquiescing to them saying we should spend another $10,000. Do we want underground?
Well, I
Wire?
mean, long-term, it's better to have it underground, because it's not something overhead that can get damaged from the weather or a truck driving on site, but,
We're getting some head shaking from the gallery. Do we want to ask our resident expert gallery person about this? Did you have something you wanted to? No. Oh, I thought you were saying no, we don't. I thought you were offering an opinion, my fault.
No, I'm saying I will.
Okay.
Darwin does it all the time. Wait.
I just,
I just don't get the extra $10,000 that it's costed to not put a pole in. Is it because they have to dig the trench to run it underground?
they have to dig the trench and then they have to pour a concrete duct bank and there's, conduit that needs to go and then they have to use, because it's such high power, they have to use an insulated electrical line that's really, that electrical line's quite expensive, but it's insulated, so it's got like wires in it and it's got insulation around it. Yeah.
So what is this gonna save us in the long run, is my question. You said it's better in the long run to have it underground.
Well,
What does this save us later in the long run?
we won't have to worry about any maintenance to the pole or any damage to the line above ground.
This is being proactive.
Basically, Nova Scotia Power said they weren't gonna put another pole in, so this is the only option.
That's,
I mean, we can go back to Nova Scotia
Answer the
Power and
question.
push back.
no, well, if they say they're not gonna put a pole in and this is the only option, I guess this is what we have to go with.
I do know from a construction point of view, from electricians, that underground is, it is more costly, but it is safer. For all the reasons that he had just mentioned, but yes, but again, it's a cost of $10,000. But is it a long-term project or a short-term project, right? So,
Clarification for me, thank you.
this is how we go over budget.
indeed.
Yes.
I just have a question about moving the water line because it's someone's porch. So I take it this must be an old grandfather type water line, because wouldn't there be an easement or anything there if you had a house constructed near a town water line? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Like
so
how
we
it's
don't
not
have
how-
That's on Marshall Street.
So
Ideally,
this
yes,
change
it
order
would
is what,
be,
number 6?
Yeah.
And the cost of it is 35. Right. So, yeah, so so I agree with Count, this is how we go over budget, but I'm just wondering. And I agree with you, we have to move the water line, I'm just wondering why we have to move the water line that's. Because it's our water line's running up to the porch.
I think that back years ago,
The
it,
days of grandfathers.
it was, it wasn't,
Built it, shouldn't.
I don't think it was well documented where all of our lines went.
Mhm.
And as staff fix things, we find them and we update our GIS records to make them more accurate, but there's still some lines out there that we don't know exactly where they are. We know roughly where they are. But until you start digging and you look for it, and Adam called me that day, he's like, we can't find the line where we thought it was, and so there is a line that goes up like at the end of Victoria Street and goes up to Junction Road. Which is the water line that now goes through the piece of land that Parsons Investments owns. And that's the line that if that subdivision moves forward, has to be moved and put in, I guess, sync with the road, the subdivision road up to the reservoir. And there was no easement in place for that either. So when we did the land sale to Parsons Investments, we put some wording in that agreement that said, and if the water line is on your property, we have an easement to it. Because there wasn't one. And so I think it's being done now and in later years, but unfortunately, without the use of technology way back 40 years ago, I don't think it was well known where all the town's lines were. So a little bit surprising that this happened, but not surprising in some regards because there are lines that we're not sure exactly where they are, but we know the rough vicinity.
Yeah, and typically with water lines, there's a valve every once in a while, and usually. The water lines run straight. So if you know a valve's here and a valve's here, the water line usually. This water line looks like they put. A valve here and then curved the pipe and then went down, which, I mean, nobody could have assumed that they would have put 3 22-degree bends on a 12-inch water line, it's just. Anyway, yeah,
That was before.
I mean, the assumption is that it ran from this valve down to the road on Victoria, and we thought it ran straight down along the property line. It's about 5 meters further back from the property line and about 4 feet from the foundation of a house, so. We had some discussion and we didn't think it was wise to go onto private property and dig an 8-foot hole right next to someone's foundation and do our main water tie-in for our new reservoir, not on our own property. It just seemed like a bad idea, so. We came up with a couple of different solutions, put them up to the contractor and. I think when we found the issue, we knew there was gonna be a fairly large change order. It's about $1,500 per meter of pipe to put in the ground, that's roughly the cost of pipe this size, it's a 1-foot pipe. You can't put it down the hole by hand, it's too heavy. I think it's $4,000 at length for a piece of pipe, that's just the cost of the pipe. So we knew adding a couple lengths of pipe. It's gonna be a large chunk, but unfortunately the closest location wasn't an option. And then we had to swing it out either towards the road or right in behind the building and down to the back of the property, which is our property again, so we'll be back on our property, but it's 6 months, half dozen the other one, you're gonna tear up asphalt, which there's a reinstatement for asphalt, you're gonna have traffic control, they're all expenses. The other one's a little further and there's increased materials for that as well, so.
Yes, I just wanna clarify something, on the deputy mayor's comment, so. This pipe is close to this house. With this change, does that eliminate the need for anything that's over by this house? Like, are we bypassing everything that's there now?
Not right now. So with the change, we're hoping to put a new piece of pipe in that when the project actually talked about the North Fence development in that pipe, then we can abandon the pipe that's near the house.
And then when we decide to abandon it, are we gonna have to do any, mediation for property or ground, because
So typically what you would do is you will cut the pipe on your property and then you fill it with concrete or some sort of non-shrink material, so there's not a void in the ground. So you
Which
don't have
was-
to dig up.
Mike said, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That would be the correct way to do it, I don't. No, but
Any more discussion? Or questions?
Just, so we don't know why they moved it around. It's not like there was a big chunk of bedrock that was in the way or something like that. For some reason, they had to go around. And that you're gonna run into the same problem again.
we dug a test hole, where we thought the water line was, it's just not compliant. There's no-
Okay, so there's no reason to.
Sometimes in the fittings were a little bit different back in the sixties, and they didn't like 90-degree bends. Cause there's a lot of pressure on a 90-degree bend when the water comes and hits it, so sometimes they tend to curve it back in the old days to try to avoid those sharp bends and that, the hammer, they model the water hammer. So maybe that's why they did it that way, I don't know, I think the host was there, I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing to do, but that's what they did.
That was way before I was turned to say.
It's asbestos concrete, so that was done in the sixties, is our best guess. I think it's asbestos concrete, they stopped using that sometime in the seventies, so.
Okay.
We did find an old sketch from the service eventually, we looked long and hard and we found a sketch of the property. From when they repaired the curb stop and. It showed it like 4 feet from the house, the main, and it did kind of make a note that there was multiple, 22.5-degree bends, so that's. Yeah,
You never
anyway,
know what's underground.
it was strange.
Yeah. Really, I mean.
Thank you.
Well, now. Any further discussion? Okay. Ready for the vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carried. Okay. So number 7 are our management reports, and
Thank you.
I guess we.
Yes, some of them were included, so Sarah, you'll have to update the
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
agenda package.
It looked like 7, 6, and 7, 8 is the only ones in it.
7, 6, and 7.
And when I try to combine them now, it's just showing the same thing.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Might have to do it in 2 separate batches.
Too much.
Two birds.
Yeah, there's no motion being asked from the reports, but
No.
we will get that corrected. Yep, it's in mine too, there's cross connection and control bylaw. So the dog bylaw one is not in there, and then it goes to the joint PAB,
Yeah,
yep, and then the indicator report.
So we have 257 pages.
yeah, 257. So it's didn't want to do that.
Well, it did 257, it didn't want to do anymore.
No, that's right. So to move on, or?
Yeah, well, there's no
That-
motion being asked, but we will have to
Send it out.
recirculate it and.
Can I
Yes.
ask, can I ask a question about the joint police advisory board draft minutes? Since it is there. The last meeting was in June and the next meeting is in September. I am sure that when we agreed to join that particular joint board. that we approved it with meetings being every 2 months, and we being 6 months, 6 meetings a year. This appears that we're only going to have 4 meetings a year.
No, I think the
It's because.
change was
we have
because
in August.
August, no councils are meeting. And so June.
So have you been meeting every 2 months prior to that?
It was.
I have another question on that. I was given to understand at that meeting that, and I wasn't there, it was just kind of a conversation with a couple of people that were there. That the RCMP, when they were asked about the motorcycle club, did confirm that they were affiliated or in some form or another with the Hells Angels Association. Yeah, and that's not reflected in the minutes. And I think that's a fairly important piece of information if that's the case. That should be reflected in the public minutes.
I think what was actually done, and it's because I asked the sergeant to explain the relevance of the 3-piece patch as well as the MC on their vest. And I don't think he outright said, as a matter of fact, I know he
He
didn't outright
didn't.
say that they were part of the organization of the Hells Angels. I said, because he did, is that any club in Nova Scotia that wants to carry those has to be approved and it's a supporter of that order. So the sergeant never said that at all.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Brand.
There's a lot of that in there.
Any other questions about that?
And normally, I didn't really know where to stick this because there's no motion, but one of the reports that did show up in your package was the 22-23 municipal profile. So that's something that we'll stick on our website, and it's, all the municipal units across the province have that out now. So I guess the positive story coming from that is that we're not high risk anymore, so for 21-22 and 2020-21, we had red financial risk ratings with the province, so high risk ratings. So 22-23 fiscal year, we've moved to yellow, which is positive. And for 23-24, what we filed with the province was yellow as well. We just don't have this official report back out from them because they are a couple years behind in their issuance of them. But I just wanted to state that it's there and it's attached, and we will get it posted on our website, and all the other municipal units would be found on the provincial website. If you type in this report name, it'll come. So anybody can already access this report on the province's website.
Okay, anything by members? Council Archibald,
No, I covered it, I've just answered, so we're good.
Councilor Bartlett,
Nothing wrong, thank you.
Councilor Smith,
We do have one item, in response to the email we got this afternoon on the follow-up of the incident at Rotary Park a week ago Friday. We're being told now that we're not going to get a direct response from the RCMP as to why they did what they did or didn't do. And that if we want any further information about it, we have to go to a joint police advisory board meeting on September 18th at 11 o'clock in Annapolis County Chambers. And I find that completely unacceptable. This was the one reason why I fought against joint police advisory board meetings to begin with, because we wouldn't get timely response and we don't get local response. And this is a clear-cut example of that. This happened in our town, it's egregious. It's, as I've outlined to some of you, the no response to that incident put the current residents at risk. They put residents at risk later that night if that person decided to get behind the wheel and drive away. And they didn't help him either. In which case, if they put him in lockup for the night and maybe provided or pointed them in the right direction for some services for housing or addictions or whatever, that they would be doing him a service. So we got zero response out of them, and now they're telling us they're not gonna tell us anything unless we go to, during the day. Annapolis County, 2 months from now. And I am thoroughly disgusted with that response. And if I could, I would make a motion tonight that we withdraw our membership in this joint police advisory board right here tonight. Do I have to say something?
So, counselor, that was my recommendation, because that is our avenue to get answers from the police is through the PAB. So I did go down and speak with Corporal Boudreaux today for about an hour and asked what I could communicate to council. As I stated in the email, it does sound like the officers were spoken to about how the matter was addressed, but he didn't want to get into specifics about the incident via email and via word of mouth through me to you. Our mechanism to question or raise concerns with the police force is through our joint PAB. So yes, when I looked at the date in his office, we both said, oh, like that's 2 months away, that's not ideal. So I would suggest that if we want an opportunity to address this sooner, that we just call a special joint police advisory board meeting and offer to have it here. That's what I suggest if we don't want to wait until September. And it wouldn't necessarily be up to all of council to go to the PAB. That's why we have representatives that sit on the PAB. So the 2 reps, I think it's Fournier and Bartlett, that sit on the PAB. So they, as representatives of that board, you would take council's concerns to the PAB, get some answers and report it back to council, and it would be reflected in the minutes. However, every other counselor is able to go as well. We just have to be careful that we're following proper process, because in the Police Act, like, it outlines the role of police advisory boards, and that is one of the roles, is that's council's mechanism to give direction and get responses, like specific responses from the RCMP. So I did what I could to give, I guess, confirmation that yes, the incident was investigated and officers were spoken to, but you know, the RCMP doesn't want to get into specifics via a non-formal, I guess, board meeting. And that was my suggestion too. So I think that if we want to have the conversation with them, we should call a special joint PAB meeting.
Are we going to learn anything more than they have been spoken to?
I can't speak for them. I don't know. I honestly can't answer that question. But that was what we discussed. And obviously Sergeant Maxwell usually attends those. And he's usually fairly open with responses, as much as he can be.
I don't see how we can appropriately represent our community under that mechanism. 3 months down the road, in another community, to talk about an absolutely horrid event in one of our parks. It doesn't sound right to me. And
Can you ask them if we did have a special meeting, if they would, what they would be able to provide?
I can.
Did we ask them that?
We're just at a weird time because we normally
Yeah.
would have a meeting in less than a month at this point. But because of the August, like, we
I
have a
get
meeting
that.
every 2
I
months.
get,
So unfortunately it is longer, but that doesn't mean that we like
but we've just
can't call
told
it
our
a special.
commission that we're spending $5 million on expenses, 900 and whatever dollars of it per household. Going to RCMP, including additional RCMP. I don't have to tell anybody this, we all know this. But this is unacceptable. To get what I think is no response.
So does council want us to call a special PAB?
I think you should find out if they're gonna tell us anything first.
Okay.
Because I'm not coming to another meeting to be told the offices have been dealt with and the complainant has been talked to. Thank you for coming. I don't need to waste my time doing that.
I just don't know
I understand.
how much they can get into, because I will say that if one of our staff did something. I don't even
get-
wanna
yeah.
use the word wrong, but
Yeah.
like, and a member of the public or another organization demanded specific answers, like, I'm not sure I would get into details either,
I get that,
right?
but
But
I think we need to know whether they've been reprimanded. Or if they've been told to do a better job, or they haven't been told anything.
The basic question would be, did they learn something from that? Would they do it differently? It's like,
What should have been the response? Maybe we can be told that. Because I don't, as I said, they did nobody any service that night. And I don't wanna pay 1.5 whatever $1 million for no service.
okay, so let me ask the question. Let me just take some notes. So can they answer what should have been the response?
If that, if I may, if that call was to happen again,
what would they-
Yes.
what would the
Yep.
normal response be to that type of incident? So in a former life,
What do we expect? Sorry.
yes, you're right. So in a former life, being part of 911, you know, we as paramedics, you have certain standards you have to uphold, and if somebody goes out of turn or does something, there's a due process internally, as the CEO had indicated, as far as dealing with staff. But the public have a right to have a bit of an understanding as to what the normal response will be. I think there's no question in this room that I think everyone acknowledges that that was an inappropriate response to that particular incident.
It would be good to know if the RCMP concur. You don't concur? So that was an inappropriate response?
No, opposite.
They agree that,
Opposite.
they agree that it was an inappropriate response.
That's the gist that I got from the conversation I had today, but again, don't know specifics,
Understood.
so. So I will email them and ask that question, and if they are prepared to give a bit more detail, we'll just call a joint PAV. Maybe the last week of July. And move forward.
If there's gonna be substance.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Okay. Councilor Knapp,
Nothing.
Councilor Fullman,
The speed display on Marshall Road Street, that is near Rotary Park, is not 20.
I got it up to 9 kilometers when I ran by it. And
I don't think it's consistent.
Let's go see if it's working right now.
And we got flip flops on, but.
Well, that's good.
Like
Go
it
for
seems to range from 60 and then it will break down to 2, and just.
I drove by the one in Aylesford a couple months ago and it said I was going 213 kilometers an hour. So,
You need to slow down.
I don't think it covered people.
Maybe you didn't feel your own speed.
Thanks.
Marshall,
Yeah, by the elementary school.
Deputy Mayor,
I just have a couple of things, your worship. One question I have, and it kind of come up in conversation. Just wondering if we can have an update. I've asked before and I had an update previously. But back to the motorcycle club on Commercial Street, I know in the planning advisory committee minutes, of March 19th, it was brought forward. By planning service coordinator Marceau, that a motorcycle club wants to open on Commercial Street, and they'll have to make an amendment to the LUB to allow for a club in commercial downtown. So that was, I would say, approximately 4 months ago. I'm just wondering where for everyone that may be listening, do we have an update on where they are with any particular application or?
so they need to make an application, and the last correspondence I have is from our development officer on July 3rd to the president of the club. Saying she's heading off on vacation until today. It would be great to see an application submitted by the time I get back. look forward to reviewing your submission and searching for solutions if the application isn't compliant with the bylaw currently. So until we have an application in front of us, as I understand this, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I can confirm that I have received an application
You have?
tonight at 6:55.
Oh. Okay then.
There you go.
So what needs to happen now, my understanding is that the application needs to be reviewed to determine if the uses proposed in the application are compliant with our land use bylaw. Because we can't guess, like, until there's an application made and we know what exactly they're proposing to do, we can't judge that against what's allowed in our bylaw until we have an understanding of what they're proposing to do with the property.
Absolutely, I was just wondering where it was, since it's been about 4 months. So this is now, we're,
There's been a lot of back and
There's been a
forth.
lot of emails to them, just, we have an application.
that's good. And I just want to clarify, for the listening public, I think most people understand this, but the tariffs on this water storage tank are not US tariffs, they're Canadian, Government of Canada tariffs placed on importing goods into Canada. So we have the Government of Canada in implementing a 25% tariff on a provincially funded water storage project. So I just want anyone that's listening, we're talking about tariffs, so they're not United States tariffs, they're tariffs by our own government, imposed on importing goods into the country. I just wanted to mention, that's all I have.
Okay, so we're gonna go into in camera, so we need, there's no further business. So we have to adjourn.
I'll move.
All right, thank you. All those in favor?
Bye.
All right. So this concludes our live streaming of today's meeting. Our next meeting will be the Committee of the Whole meeting on Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. The agenda package will be posted on town's website on Friday, August 29th. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or ideas that you would like to have addressed during anything by citizens, part of the agenda, please submit them to ea@town.middleton.ns.ca by noon Tuesday, September 2nd. Thank you for watching.